It looks like it's slowed down, so we're going to start. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Seibert with Lehigh Valley College Planners, a division of 1847 Financial here in the Lehigh Valley. Tonight, we're going to go over how to pay for your child's college education with as little out-of-pocket cost as possible. Be more efficient with your dollars. Find out how you don't have to go broke putting your kids through college to, make sure that they get to college, but then what about your retirement? So we're going to get into a lot of information tonight. So if you could, everyone's muted right now. If you can, turn off any distractions, take out a sheet of paper for some notes. This is really important stuff. We've been doing this now for a while, and the parents that we have helped so far and the kids that are picking the right colleges has been very rewarding. So take an hour to invest in yourself, invest in your family. This could mean tens of thousands of dollars for you, not only now, but also in the future for your retirement. So ask any questions in the chat box. I'll be monitoring that. I may type the answer back, or if it's important, I'll interrupt Howie and Morgan during the presentation. So introducing the team of Lehigh Valley College Planners, again, a division of 1847 Financial. My name is Mike Seibert. Also on the Zoom webinar is Morgan Stewart and Howie Lessel. This is your team at Lehigh Valley College Planners. Myself, I'm coming into my 32nd year into the financial planning arena. I started way back in 1989. And, when my child went to college, I didn't understand college planning as well as I do now. So over the past year or so, I've taken, and Morgan and Howie, we've taken a lot of time to understand how college planning works. My website on the right there is destinationretirement.com. If you open your phone to your camera and hover over the QR code there, you can, it'll go right to my website. We're located on 1550 Pond Road in Allentown. My career, like I said, started back in 1989. I was doing a lot of stockbroker, fee-based financial planning stuff for clients, and also taxes. So I learned how to do taxes at an early time in my career because I thought the two would work hand in hand, and they do, obviously. And then we got into a lot of retirement planning for people. And then I found this market, Morgan and Howie and I found this market of a much needed market of helping parents with this confusing process of college planning. And then Morgan and Howie, want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Morgan Stewart. I've been with 1847 Financial for a little over a year now. And prior to that, I worked at Deloitte in Philadelphia for 3 years in their audit practice.
Hi, I'm Howie Lessel. I have been with 1847 Financial. It'll be 8 years in April. I have a little bit of a career path, a strange career path. I've spent over 30 years in public education, doing everything from classroom teaching to working as the principal at Parkland High School. And I currently still do some work, part-time work with Kutztown University. Matter of fact, I place all of their student teachers. So I have sort of a unique perspective on this process from pretty much every angle, including having 3 kids that have gone through or are going through college.
Great, thanks. So this is a 1-hour free college planning consultation, maybe now 58 minutes. And you're probably going to be in one of 3 categories, which is number 1, wow, my current advisor is really taking care of this. You guys, I've heard all this before because my advisor is up to date on college planning. I'm in good hands. And if you are, that's great. Call your advisor tomorrow and thank them for the path that you're on. I think very few of you will be in that corner. However, if you are on a path and you think you can use a little bit more help, then we're here for you as well. Many of you, like I said, the majority of you are going to have concerns we talk about that need to be sorted out, and take this time to learn all this stuff. I mean, it is a lot of stuff, and we're here to serve you because of the way I put my child through college. I didn't know all this stuff, and I've been, again, almost 30 years back then when my first child went to college, and I was just like any other parent, and I really kind of just asked my son where he wanted to go, and what happened was he wanted to go where his friends were going. And that turned out okay for him. But, you'll see in part of this presentation that a lot of the things I didn't know, I probably could have gave my son better advice. And also, not only advice on how to save you money and pay for college the right way, but also pick the right college for your child, and having us and our back office talk to your child about if they don't know where they want to go. We don't want you having to having your child go someplace and then finding out 6 months, a year later that it wasn't the right fit, and now they have to start all over again. So not only going to have to start all over again, the payments have to start all over again. And the average child right now, it's about 5.8 years. And one of our goals with our parents we sit down with is to make sure it's less than 5 years or 4 years, hopefully. Some of you gonna, third, type of people that are on this call, or for whatever reason you have no interest, and that's okay. Maybe, take some good information from this and take our names and our contact information down, and maybe we can help you in the future, not only with college planning, but also retirement planning. So this may sound a little weird to you right now, but keep in mind what we do is an efficient planning process that's really based on not only helping you accumulate wealth and then pay for college, but then whatever wealth you have left over after you pay for college, and whatever way you're going to do it, we'll teach you how to turn those assets into an income stream later on in life. That's the most important part. Let's begin with the purpose in mind. The reason why we're saving money for the long term, it's not only to help put our children through college, it's also to take the assets we created and turn them into an income stream that we can outlive. So how you save for college can help your retirement savings, and how you save for retirement now can also help your college savings. So you'll get more efficient ideas from us on how you can do both. So this is the analogy we will use, and then we'll get into the main presentation about college. But we want to let you know about what Lehigh Valley College Planners and 1847 Financial is all about. Being in this industry for 30 plus years, I never really understood about distribution. So the analogy we use here is the objective of climbing a mountain is not to get to the top. The objective is to get back down safely. So pre-retirement, which we're all in right now, unless some of you on the phone or on the Zoom call are grandparents and already retired, but pre-retirement is about accumulation. Then you get to the top of the mountain. That's the day that you retire. Well, then how do you turn your assets into an income stream? Well, what I found out back in 1998, about 10 years into my career, I found out there's 3 different types of income streams, or 3 different types of income strategies you could take at retirement. But most people only know one: living off interest. Well, there's a big educational push through the American College where not only Howie and Morgan get some information from and take classes from, but the rest of our peers, the entire financial planning community across the United States, goes to the American College to get degrees and designations, etc. Well, the hottest designation out there right now is called the RICP, Retirement Income Certified Professional. And so it also takes, so what Retirement Income Certified Professional does, it teaches you how to turn your assets into an income stream using 2 other income strategies that you don't even know are available to you. So we'll not only help you talk about college today and make sure we fill out all the important information you have on your plate right now, but also keep in the back of our minds about your retirement as well. So everyone has a growth cycle. It's called an exponential curve. And that's how money compounds. And if you didn't have an expense, you would see all of your money compound up to the top, and then you'd have this big pile of money at the top, and then you would retire. However, what we have is college expenses, or weddings or things like that, where you halfway through building up your exponential curve, kind of like what a 529 plan does, is you build up your wealth and then you cash it in and you start all over again. Or we have parents who pay off their house, have no debt, and then their kids go to college and they have no way to pay for their kids' college, so they have to take out loans again, because if they just don't know what to do. There really isn't an efficient way of understanding this, or an economics-based way of understanding this. So what we'll try and do tonight is show you, using a technique in financial planning community right now called 2 economic powers, which is involving two industries and making sure you understand that these two industries work together in the financial planning community, where we're not going to cut off your growth cycle. We're still going to pay for college, but it won't affect your retirement as much. But let's get to the whole point of tonight's conversation, and that's about the college planning and how Lehigh Valley College Planners would love to help you.
All right, so parents mainly have concerns about college because just simply they don't have enough knowledge about the college planning process. And when they don't have enough knowledge on that, then they miss deadlines and make mistakes. They also might only have 1 to 2 years saved for college and not all 4 years saved, or they didn't even start developing a plan of how they're going to pay for these next 4 years. Some other things that concern parents is they might do things that could hurt their child getting into a college. And then also from the financial aspect, they think they're helping their children, but they're actually hurting their child from the perspective of not getting as much aid as they really can. Next slide.
Yep, sorry.
Go, there you go. There you go. So the typical timelines that you want to keep in mind are freshman, sophomore, and junior year. You really want to focus on the child's academics, their SAT scores, their GPAs, and focusing on what type of major they're interested in. And then once they decide on a major that they think they want to pick for their career in the working world, then you want to look into schools that have good programs for that major. Then when it comes time for their senior year of college or high school, I'm sorry, you want to look at filling out applications for the colleges. And then October 1st, every October 1st, the FAFSA opens, and you should make sure that you have your documents ready and submit that as soon as possible, because there's just that bucket of money that opens October 1st. And the sooner you fill it out, maybe the better award or aid you get from the federal government. And then there's also something called the CSS profile, which is the College Scholarship Service profile. Not every college requires this form, but there are some colleges out there that do require this. So you want to make sure that if they do that, you fill that form out as well. And then February, March, you typically will get the award letters back from the colleges. And that's when you want to look into, did my student get a fair offer? If not, you can actually appeal the offer, because sometimes there's mistakes in that process. And then May 1st comes around and they would basically hopefully make their college decision, because that's the deadline. And one thing to keep in mind is the first semester bill that's due, 4 to 6 weeks. I think some parents forget that. They think, oh, end of August or when the student starts, but it really comes due about that tuition bill mid-July to the end of July. So just keep that in mind. It comes around quicker than you think. So basically the big question is, why is college so ridiculously expensive? And the problem is that there's more money out there, but there's also more kids going to school. And what you'll learn from listening to this presentation is that the people who know what they're doing when they go through this process, they end up not paying the sticker price for the college costs. They end up paying less. And throughout this process, we hope that you would sign up for the free consultation to figure out how to move money legally to lower that expected family contribution. So some of the reasons why the college cost is expensive is simply technology costs. Technology is great, but it's really expensive. And some of those things that you'll see is when they upgrade the computer labs in the different schools, upgrading facilities such as the remodeling the dorm rooms or even classrooms and labs and stuff like that. Staffing costs, so this is where the schools try to attract the best professors to the schools, so they're trying to pay, salary becomes competitive. And then marketing the school, so this would be like brochures that you get in the mail, and advertising costs now at the social media platforms now that they have. And then there's this net pricing strategy, which basically is where the college is trying to attract as many students to the school with the least amount of aid to the student. And the last one is the guaranteed government loans. Students qualify for, but sometimes these government loans, if they get defaulted on, that cost comes back to the school, and then it will pass on that cost to the student or the cost of attendance. So looking at that graph, the private versus state, I just want to highlight a few things here. So basically, when you're looking at 4 years of college, you're looking anywhere from $100,000 on the low end to $260,000 on the high end. And keep in mind, that's if the student gets done school, their undergrad degree in 4 years. But as Mike said earlier, the national average now is about 5.8 years till the student just finishes their undergraduate degree. And then if you have 2 or 3 kids, you're talking about a huge amount of money that's going to be going to college before you guys retire. And this is just one of the biggest financial burdens we see families suffer before they decide on their retirement. And if they do it inefficiently, they can, hurt their retirement as well. So how a family is supposed to pay for this? Well, there's 5 different options. Obviously, you can use your savings. The second option would be to borrow money. The third option would be scholarships that hopefully your student would get awarded. The fourth option is go to a less expensive school, or the fifth option, not go at all. Well, obviously we don't agree with the last 2, and hopefully you're not wasting your time tonight if not going to college for your child is an option. So the first way to pay for college is your savings. It's super easy. This is obviously a joke, but just take out the $200,000 that's burning a hole in your pocket and pay for college. Well, obviously, this isn't what majority of families have. They just don't have that cash sitting around. So you have to know how to play the game before you enter this college process, because even if you have, let's say, $10,000 in your savings, that could raise your cost of college for your student anywhere from like $560 to $2,000 per year per child. So you really got to know how to play this game before you start. So the second option would be to borrow money. And, some of the questions here is, would you rather have a tax deduction or no deduction, a fixed payment or an increasing payment, interest-free loan or high interest loan? And then would you rather take a loan out each year and even every semester, or have the funds readily available for you? So for scholarships, this is something, if you guys want to just answer in the chat, what percentage of the $246 billion available in student aid came up in the form of scholarships? So from 0 to 100, if you just want to type in the chat what percentage you think it is. And also, while you're answering that, just make sure that you write down these websites, because these are 3 great websites that you can have your student fill out and create a profile. And there's like random ones on there. Like if your student's left-handed, there might be some for that. If they had a health issue, there's just very random scholarships out there. It doesn't hurt to, look. But again, the biggest takeaway here is, your scholarships might only amount to $1,000. And when you have a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 tuition bill coming, you don't want to be spending so much time looking for the crumbs. So I think.
All right, Morgan, I have 3 20%, a 25, a 30, a 42, 15, 10, 7. So a bunch of different bunch of different answers.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
So the answer to this question is, it's only 3.5% that comes in the form of scholarships. So again, like I said, you don't want to have spend so much time getting, $500 here, $1,000 here and stuff like that when you really have to come up with, $30,000, $40,000 to pay for college. But again, $1,000 is $1,000, but it's just, the key takeaway, don't spend so much time searching for the crumbs. So the last two options, go to a less expensive school or not go at all. We don't agree with these. Oftentimes these pricey private schools, if you do them right, could cost you a lot less money than going to a local state school. And you'll see what I mean by this later in the presentation, how he's going to go over two different schools later on. So basically the two financial aid things for myth versus reality is some people just think, oh, I'm not going to fill out the FAFSA. I make too much money, I won't get anything. This is true for some families, but really it's just a matter of repositioning their assets. We can't lower income, but we definitely can reposition assets so that they're legally moved into what's called a non-countable asset for the expected family contribution formula. The other thing was,
I just touched a button there, sorry.
that's okay.
Go ahead, you can keep on.
Okay, the other thing was grades are too low. And basically this could affect your direct college dollars, but the federal and state money have nothing to do with your grades. So that's another myth. Owning a home, most schools don't even ask about your house. Now, there are some schools that do, and most of those would be schools that require you to fill out the CSS profile, which is that college scholarship service profile. But again, not every college asks for your. Okay, we're back.
I just need to get the chat box back up again.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
I was answering a couple questions and thumbs got in the way.
Okay. And then the other one is aid is only for special groups. This is just not true at all. It's an easy process. Obviously, it's not. After going over the concerns in the beginning, parents just don't know what they're doing. And it's complex. It's a 4-year commitment. It's a lot of money too. So I would definitely not agree that it's an easy process. School people can help. High school counselors are awesome people. However, especially with public schools, they have like 300 to 400 students per counselor. And it's just time consuming that these counselors don't know much about the financial aid process. And it's just so much time to really dive deep with each individual student to go over the entire college planning process. So if you're taking notes, this is a formula I would suggest that you write down. So basically it's the COA, or it's called the cost of attendance, minus your EFC, which is your expected family contribution, equals your need. So when you fill out the FAFSA, you're going to get back the EFC, and that's going to state how much you're expected to pay for the school. And then whatever is left over is the need. And that cost is basically where you want to make sure you find the right fit school for your student, so that the student or the college wants your student there and they're going to meet 100% of that need. Because if they're not the top 25% in that school, then you might need to add some of that need to your total college costs. So that's important. So how do you apply for aid? So the free application for federal student aid is the FAFSA. This is another thing that you should write down, this website, www.fafsa.ed.gov. And this is where it opens every October 1st. And this is where you'll fill out your information to get that EFC and how much aid you would get. I suggest everyone fills it out, and you have to do this every year. And one of the main reasons is also just obviously with COVID and stuff, some parents lost jobs, so they don't have the income they had, last year. And that's where their EFC can change over the years. Or, if a parent passes away, stuff like that. You never know what can happen. So you definitely want to make sure you apply for this every year. So let's talk about what makes up your EFC from the FAFSA. And basically, it's looking at all your income and your assets, checking, savings, 529 plans, benefits, the family size, the number of children in college, and that's key. When you have two kids in college at the same time, that really helps to lower your EFC, even for the high income earners. And the other thing they look at is the age of the oldest parent too. But again, if you decide that you want to meet with us and stuff, we can definitely help you lower that EFC for college. So your EFC will approximately be the same at every college, but what the variable is, again, is you have different costs of colleges, and then it's really meeting that need. Whatever that need is, that leftover amount, you really want to make sure your student finds the right fit school so that they, give money to meet that need. So you really just pay the expected family contribution.
Thanks, Morgan.
You're welcome, Helen.
Let's talk a little bit about federal programs and start to get into the weeds a little bit with some of your opportunities that you have at each level. And you hear these things and it sounds a lot like alphabet soup, and they're very, very confusing. Again, having gone through it 3 times myself, it takes a long time to really get the lingo and understand what it is. But your federal Pell Grants are, you may hear that term, that is for somebody with extreme needs. So you may or may not have the opportunity to take advantage of that. Supplemental educational opportunity grants, work studies, direct and indirect loans, subsidized versus unsubsidized. You're sitting there Googling, trying to figure out what all of these things mean. And really the goal of our presentation and working with families is to try to sort this all out and explain what each one is, so that when you do have the opportunity to choose between a variety of things, you make your most informed choice. Next slide, please. Okay, so you're going to fit into one of these 3 categories. You may get 100% of your need met because your income is at that level where, whether it's a college that costs $20,000 or $70,000, your need is going to be 100% of that. Most people probably are going to fit in that middle category somewhere, where they're going to have partial need, they're going to have some need that will be matched or met. And then you may be sitting there saying, well, I make too much money, I'm not even going to fill out the FAFSA because I know I'm not going to get anything. And that's really a big mistake. Not filling it out precludes you from getting any grants or aids from the school. We worked with a family recently that was in the boat where they thought that they made too much money, yet their child received a grant, a substantial grant from school, and they would not have been eligible for that had they not filled out the FAFSA. Okay. So let's talk about where the money comes from and the various sources here. There are really 4. The federal government, which I talked about, state government, the colleges and universities themselves, and then those private sources that Morgan mentioned. And we'll talk a little bit more about each one. So your Pell Grants and some of those things I've talked a little bit about. Let me hit on a couple other things here. College work study is often included in financial aid packages, especially at the private schools. And that's something that you definitely want your child to take advantage of. Number one, I don't know about you, but I wanted my boys to have skin in the game. In other words, they're going to work while they're on campus, they're going to make money, and that money can be used towards college. That's part of their aid package. And these college jobs are not all that demanding. I have one child that keeps score at intramural games. That's not too hard. I, again, work part-time at Kutztown, and I've seen some of these student workers that sit in an office and their job is to answer the phone, and the phone rings maybe once a week. So it's something you definitely want to look into. The other one we didn't touch on were Parent Plus loans. And really, people out there are going to lend you money. The question is, what's the interest rate? When do you have to pay it back? Is the interest accruing during college, or is it deferred until after college? Again, all things we can help you with. Let's talk about state. State programs are different than your federal programs. However, if you don't fill out the FAFSA for the federal aid, you can't get state aid. So it all sort of snowballs here. So once you filled out your FAFSA form, then in Pennsylvania, you'll get an email asking you to fill out the FIA to have an opportunity to get aid from the state. You know, depending on the profession that you go into, you may get certain aid. Again, I'm heavily involved in education. There's something out there called Teach America, where if you get involved in that, they'll pay your loans if you work for them for X number of years. Let's talk about the colleges and universities themselves. This is the sweet spot. This is where the money is. And their goal, as Morgan talked about earlier, is to get your child to go to their school and to give them as little money as possible. Okay, they have huge endowments, and those things weren't built overnight. They want to fill the seats, they want to fill the dorms, but they want to attract the best students that they can, but their goal is to try to get you to go there at a minimum cost. And we'll talk more about leveraging a little later on. Okay, and finally, as Morgan talked about, you know, you have all of these different smaller opportunities, scholarships, and there were some websites that Morgan had up there on the screen that you can take a look at. We don't want you to spend your time there. If you have some time and you can do that, but you can sign up for those services and they'll email you opportunities that you can look into. Literally, there's a Thomas Jefferson Scholarship out there for left-handed, red-headed writers. But those things, as we said, that's a very, very small amount of the money that's actually available out there. Okay, so let's move on. We talked about those private sources, so let's move into the next. Thanks. All right, so when you're applying for aid, everyone fills out the FAFSA. Private schools and some other public schools will require the CSS profile. The CSS profile is sort of like the FAFSA on steroids. It's going to ask a lot more questions. It's going to drill down a lot harder. The individual schools may have a process that you have to work through, and depending on whether or not you're a business owner or your family situation, there may be more forms on top of that. And the trick is everything has to match. Now, one of the nice things about the FAFSA is that it'll use the IRS retrieval tool to bring your tax return right in, but there are a lot of other financial questions that are asked there. And if you report one thing to the school and one thing on the FAFSA and they're different, it's going to hold up the process and things are going to get kicked back. And that's going to hurt because, again, there's only a certain amount of money that they're going to give out. And as that pot depletes, your academic performance has to increase in order to be able to get some of that money. So you really want to get there while there are still fish in the pond. Next slide. Okay, so let's talk about percentages of need. You know, we talked about the formula Morgan did in terms of calculating your need. It's that cost of attendance minus your expected family contribution. So in the top example there, hey, my cost of attendance is 20,000. My EFC is 5,000. I need 15. I have to make up 15,000, or somebody does somewhere. All right. Some schools will meet only 50% of that need. So maybe they're only going to give you $7,500. Some might give you 100%. You need to find out what that formula is for each of those schools that your child's applying to, because that's going to really determine what that end price tag is and what your sticker price is for that particular school. Next, please. Right, so, let's talk about, we want to know how much of the need that school's going to meet. How much of that money is free? When you see the word grant equals free. Okay, so when my award comes back for my boys at Gettysburg College and it says Gettysburg College grant, I'm doing backflips and somersault. How much of that is self-help money? We talked about on-campus jobs and things like that, where the student is contributing to that. You need to know that, and all of that stuff is available. You can find out how much they're typically going to give, what it takes to qualify, but it is a very, very complicated process, especially the first time going through, and that's why we're here to help. Next, please. Let's look at two examples, and we have Lehigh University and Kutztown University. Again, not exact numbers. This is just for comparative purposes, but I think you can agree that one has a substantially higher price tag. So my child wants to go to Lehigh or Kutztown, and obviously mom and dad are going, oh my gosh, Lehigh, we don't have the money for that. Kutztown's going to be a lot cheaper, but that may or may not be true, because let's suppose that our EFC came back, our expected family contribution is $7,878, but Lehigh's meeting 100% of our need, and Kutztown's only meeting 55% of our need. Well, if you look at it on the bottom, okay, when it all boils out, I may only be paying $78.78 at Lehigh, and I might have to pay $17,000 at Kutztown. For those of you that don't believe that, when I had a senior at Westchester and a freshman at Gettysburg, I paid less at Gettysburg, which now has a sticker price of $70,000, than I did for my senior at Westchester. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so remember, this is not a perfect science, and schools will miss award. Maybe they're going to under award something. Maybe they're going to over award you, and that'd be great. But they are in competition for your student. And I know from personal experience, I had a situation with one of my boys where he whittled it down to 3 schools. And by the time we got done negotiating with those 3 schools, all 3 of the offers were within $500 of each other. And it didn't start out that way. So we know how to help you navigate that process once the awards come back, and make sure, if it's a fair award, we're going to say, hey, it's fair. But if we look at it and we say, boy, that really doesn't sound right, we're going to help you out through that appeal process.
Hey, Howie, I had a question.
Sure.
Let me read it. What are some of the reasons why they miss award?
Well, number one, you could have made a mistake on your FAFSA. All right. And I did that one time. One year when I had 2 boys in, instead of checking a box that said one of my children was going to be a full-time student, I checked that it was going to be a part-time student. And so they did, it was a mistake on my side. It eventually got corrected, but that's certainly, and when you look at those forms, I mean, your eyes are popping out of your head by the time you're done, especially the CSS profile. So that's one of the things that can happen.
Okay, and explain the schools trying to compete with other schools. Is that more in regards to putting more than one school down in the FAFSA, or just, what are they looking for?
Well, yes, and certainly, so, you absolutely want to put down several schools on the FAFSA, and you may want to have a range, schools that maybe you're applying to Princeton and Lehigh, and you also throwing in something like a safety school, and I'll call it Kutztown. That's your safety school. But you want to have a couple things on there, because if your whole family has gone to Penn State and your whole house is painted in blue and white, and you only put that down on your FAFSA, that's where you want to go, they're seeing your information, they know they got you. They know that you want to go there, and you're going to go there no matter what. And they're going to look at that and they're going to go, we really don't have to throw a real great aid package at this person because they're all into Penn State. Okay, so obviously, we're going to play, let's make a deal. You have to know your options here. What are they? What are your options? What are your opportunities? So, we talked a little bit about leveraging, and let's go on to the next one. More than half of private schools and many of the publics do this. Okay, so if you go back to them, and sometimes, we're working with a family right now where a child is getting some aid, and it's a Division III school, so they can't give athletic scholarships, but the coach is helping them leverage the university to try and get the child into a particular school and get a better aid package. So they may do that, but again, they're a business. They're trying to get money coming in the door. They'd rather not give you the aid, but they want you there. So they have to find that balance. Okay, so again, this is really where we shine. Again, we have a lot of experience, personal and professional, in playing the shell game and trying to find ways for you to get more money, essentially lowering your expected family contribution by doing things legally. We want to put your assets into places that aren't countable assets. In other words, they don't count against that expected family contribution on the FAFSA. And again, we're very experienced at doing that. That is something that we do very well for families. Does that mean we can get your need down to zero? No, it certainly doesn't. But we are able to, as Mike said earlier, reposition some things with two goals in mind. Number one, lowering that expected family contribution and hoping to not really blow up that exponential curve that Mike talked about, that growth cycle.
And I think filling out the is just like filling out your tax return and itemizing your deductions. You want to set things up so that if you can itemize it, then why would you take the standard deduction when the itemized amount that you could subtract from your taxes is much more than the standard deduction? You just need to know what to do beforehand and learn how to play the game. And this really is a game before you fill out the FAFSA form, so you can take advantage of knowing the rules before you play the game.
Exactly. So, let's look at an example. And, if you look at family A and family B, they're identical. Okay, the income is identical. The assets, excluding the home, are identical. They both have the equity. The numbers are the same, but one has an EFC of 28,000. The other has an EFC of 16,000. And you look at this and you scratch your head and you go, wow, how can that possibly be? And the reason is family B obviously has some assets that are not counted or are not counted as heavily as the assets that family A has. There's again, very complicated formula in terms of where assets are, whose name are they in, what exactly do you have there? Okay. Some other things, tax credits. Tax credits are an option. And here's something you talk to your accountant about, but you have to be aware of tax credits and tax deductions. Also, one of the things that when people start getting backed into a corner and they get to a point where, all right, we're out of money, we've got 2 years to go, what are we going to do? They look at their retirement plans and they start to panic and they say, all right, can I take money out of my IRA? Can I take money from my 401k? Well, you have to understand the implications there. I mean, penalty-free IRA withdrawals versus penalty-free withdrawals from 401k, it's really not true. In your 401k, if you take money out of there to pay for college, you're going to have a 10% penalty tacked onto that. So you need to be aware of some of these pitfalls. And again, it's a lot more of an accounting question, but we certainly help you with that as well. Okay. So, when you talk just briefly here from 30,000 feet, if you get a tax deduction, a deduction's only going to decrease, you're going to save $240 versus a credit where you may save $1,000. Little, obviously, a slight difference in wording there, but it makes a huge difference when you talk about the overall impact on how you're paying for college and how much you're paying for college. Okay, the most popular saving vehicle for college is the 529 plan. And everybody's heard of them. They may not understand them, but one of the things that your traditional financial advisors will always say is, well, you just had a child, or you have a 5-year-old child or a 10-year-old or whatever. Let's get a 529 plan started to save for college. Okay. Not the worst idea. You want to save for college, but let's talk a little bit about the reality and the implications of the 529. Next slide, please. Oh, I think you jumped up. All right. So, when you talk about the 529 owned by a child, it's considered an asset on the FAFSA when you put it in there. But parents have an asset protection allowance, and it varies slightly. It's based mainly on the age of the oldest parent. But any assets above and beyond that, you're looking at a maximum of 5.64% of the asset value. So if it's something there, when you look at it, for every $10,000, that's going to cost you $564. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it can add up. And obviously, I'd rather have the $564 than not have the $564. Okay, so it doesn't seem like much. Obviously, it's a tax-free vehicle, and it's growing tax-free. But is it the best way? Because when you look at that as a college admissions officer, when they see those assets are 529, they are specifically earmarked for college. So they're going to go right after that money. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, this is wording right from the CSS profile. Enter the total assets held in 529 college savings plans that were established for the student by someone other than the student's parents. Okay, a lot of times grandparents and aunts and uncles and things like that want to help with a child's college expenses. So they start a 529, and that's perfectly acceptable, but they have to count all of those that are in that child's name. That's going to affect your expected family contribution. And they also ask how much will be withdrawn during the upcoming school year for the benefit of that student. So you're prior to getting the bill, they're asking you how much you plan on taking out of that 529. Okay. What it boils down to is, if you have a 529, make sure that you let us or somebody else who works in college planning take a look at that before you apply for financial aid. Okay. Obviously, right now, if you have seniors, you've already submitted your FAFSA. If you have juniors, obviously, we can help you with that. But once you've submitted that, obviously the water's over the dam for this year if your child's going to be a freshman next year. Next slide.
One question: what other types of investments? I guess I think one of the, I guess you can say, worse type of investments is an asset that's in the child's name, like a savings account or a checking account. Can you elaborate on that?
Correct. So if you have, let's say you have an UGMA account, a Uniform Gift to Minors account, or something along those lines, this savings account that you've had for your child, and people have been giving money at birthdays, and all of a sudden you have $10,000 or $15,000 or more sitting in the child's name. That's really the worst place to have it, because the way the formula, and we're not going to get too much into the weeds of the formula to create that EFC, but any asset that's solely in the child's name is looked at as totally accessible by the school. So they look at that and they say, Johnny's got $15,000. Johnny can give us $15,000 because what does he need it for other than college? Okay.
Okay, so that counts more, it's going to hurt their EFC more.
Correct. At a much higher rate. Yes. Okay. All right. So, again, are you going to take advantage of certain tax provisions? Can you use certain tax provisions and tax credits? Do you make too much money to qualify for those things? A lot of people look at the equity in their house. And as Mike said earlier, people get to this point and they go, we paid our last mortgage payment. And now all of a sudden the kids are in school and you find out you're refining. People do that all the time. Is that a good thing to do? Well, that depends. Again, everybody's situation is different. If people need to tap their IRAs to help pay for college expenses, what is that going to do to their growth cycle? Is that a smart idea? Really, again, for our purposes, when we sit down and we have consultations and help you, we're going to look at the entire picture and we're going to try to create the most efficient model for you. What may be the best for you is probably not the best thing for your neighbor.
And now I'll just elaborate on that last bullet point there about IRAs. I had a case where there was no equity in the house. There was no assets in the house and that they had in checking or savings that they saved for college, just for ordinary bills and things like that. But the father had a huge 401k, and that's what they were going to use to pay for college. While still actively employed, if they would pull the money out of the 401k, not only would they pay income taxes on that, but because it was classified a 401k, there was additional 10% penalty. So most everyone that's on this call tonight, if you go into your 401k, your 401k's website, there's a little known, rule or something in your plan document called an in-service non-hardship withdrawal. That's how much you could take out of your 401k and move to an IRA. So that's what we did. We moved the money from the 401k over to a money market IRA. Then they took the money out and they saved 10%, which was, a substantial amount of money. So you need to know all those little nuances.
There was before you jump in there, where there was one question there that I could jump on in the chat about, my FAFSA is already submitted for this year. Is it too late to make changes? No, you can amend that. But again, that really starts the ball rolling again. So that's something maybe we could talk about specifically, what it is that you want to do in terms of making changes, John. Okay. All right. Sorry, Morgan.
No, that's okay. Thanks, Howie. So the key here is to make sure that you start the college planning process as early as possible. And maybe you're not in a position where you're filling out the FAFSA right now, but the key is starting the college funding process early. Don't think that because your kids are in grade school and not in college or high school right now that you cannot meet with us. We are working with families right now that anywhere from a senior right now in high school all the way down to, fourth graders, fifth graders, etc. So please, 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 I cannot stress enough to meet sooner than later. Take us up on the free consultation. All it can hurt is an hour of your time if it was wasted, but I really think we can help you guys earlier in the process, the better, but it's definitely important to start as soon as possible. So some of the questions that we can help you with is, again, how to lower my EFC, what is the right fit for my student, how to be that top 25% when they're applying, how can we qualify for more aid, or how do we move the assets around so that we get the lowest EFC, and then any guidance on the FAFSA or CSS profiles. And then if they get a letter that's not fair, how do we appeal those letters? So those are things we can help you with. So the other thing is, don't think that if you make too much money that you're not going to qualify for need-based aid. We still meet with clients that don't qualify for need-based aid, and we have different strategies available of how to pay for college the most efficiently way as possible, and also not tapping into, again, their 401ks or any other retirement accounts that are specifically used for their retirement. So basically, if you meet with us, some of the things we can do is the income and asset repositioning. Obviously, we can't lower your income, but there's different strategies and vehicles that we can move money into different accounts that aren't countable assets on the FAFSA form. And then also just narrowing down the list of schools for your student, figuring out what majors and what schools are going to fit for them, whether it's public or private schools, and how far away they want to be from home and stuff like that. And also what type of programs they have. If they're in a major, that would consider them to go into a graduate program. So basically, these are some questions that you want to ask yourself, how do I know what my EFC is before applying to the college? And that's, again, you want to know how to play the game before you apply to make the student stand out to that school to get as much aid as possible. And then are there any other strategies that you can take advantage to pay for college more efficiently? And again, you don't want to tap into those retirement accounts if you don't have to. So some of the requirements for our free consultations is to have a meeting scheduled within 2 to 3 weeks from today. If you're married, we request that both parents would be present because we want to make sure you guys are on the same page as us and that you understand our process. And then there's going to be a little form that we send to you prior to the meeting. If you could just fill that out and have it handy when we meet, that would be helpful to have some data. And then you can choose to meet Zoom, home, or in office. That's something that we can look into when you send an email or call. And my contact information to meet with Howie, Mike, and I, here's my email and cell phone number. You can call or text that or send an email, write that down. And I'd be happy to schedule a one-on-one meeting so we can help lower that EFC.
Okay, thank you, Morgan. So everyone that's on the line, one more question. If grandparents want to give money to their children as gifts or to pay for college, what's the best way of doing it?
That's really going to depend on their situation. We'd have to look at what's in place already. And,
Okay.
That's more of a confidential kind of thing. We'll have to discuss offline.
All right. So naturally, everyone on the line, thanks for everyone for staying around, and 100%, that's great. This is 100% of the people that started finished. So hopefully you got something out of this tonight, but naturally you're going to want to know how we get paid. The first meeting is free. You'll get some information from us. You'll see some of the packages that we offer, all the way from, hey guys, just please do this for me. And we charge a certain price for that. And then there's also something that if you want to do the FAFSA and all the other documents yourself, the CSS, et cetera, there's a lower price for asset repositioning. That's to help show you before you fill out the FAFSA, because again, you have to fill out the FAFSA every year. So what you do now will help out for next year's or this October's FAFSA to reposition your assets to make sure that you still have the assets, but they won't show up legally on the FAFSA form, because there's certain types of assets that you can own that are non-countable that you still have access to. We don't make the rules, we just understand them. Howie, Morgan, and I put a lot of time into this, learning this, not only on the college side, but then also my entire career wanted to make sure that, this college planning was part of my practice to help make sure that your retirement isn't affected as much as it maybe is going to be if you don't know the 3 different income styles or the 3 different income strategies you can take at retirement. So we want to set you up today to help lower your EFC. but then also show you what retirement's going to look like. And retirement's not going to be having the biggest 401k in the world. It's how do you take that 401k and turn it into the largest, most reliable income stream for the rest of your life with the least amount of worries. So this kind of goes hand in hand, college planning and retirement planning. How you save for college is going to help your retirement, and how you save for retirement is going to help your college. All right. So hope there's no more questions. So everyone, thank you for attending. Morgan's going to be standing by now by her phone and her email, that if you want to set up a meeting, she has our calendars. Please email Morgan now for your free consultation. Hopefully you'll get something from this tonight. Hopefully you'll take us up on the consultation. Maybe the consultation, it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't cost you anything. It'll be time well spent. So, you know, reach out to Morgan tonight. Howie, anything else?
No, I think we're good.
All right, hold on. One more question just came in. Thanks. Looking okay. So it was a thank you. So that's it. Everyone have a great night. Be safe, and we hope to meet with you soon. Take care.